Would you care to do the intro? Would you like me to do the intro? Because this is a terrific book too. Boy, talk about everybody being a bunch of sons of beeswaxes in a book. This book, everybody's a double deal and dirty, you know what? And I'm not giving anything away, right down to the main character. I mean, this is like a really good time, and also, it's got some important stuff rankling through it. Lindsay, would you care to do the intro?
Sure, I would love to. I love these. It's a really good time. These are always tricky too because I know you as well had such a fun time reading it, and it's tricky because we want to talk all about it, but we also want everyone to go read it. So our job is to make sure that you love the next guest that we're talking to, which we already do. Next on the show, Jeremy D. Baker. He's lived actually, Jim, a life that it sounds like it reads like its own little thriller. Grew up between Italy, Florida, and Maryland. Dropped out of college at 19 to join the U.S. Army as a counterintelligence agent. Do I say humant? Or do I spell Humint? How do I say that?
Humint.
I said it right. Okay.
You said it right.
Thank you. We'll talk more. And Human Collector, he served alongside special forces in Afghanistan, surviving the long shadows of PTSD. And for the last 2 decades, he's worked in national security with a focus on intelligence, counterterrorism, organized crime, human trafficking, climate risk, cybersecurity. I'm sure the list goes on. So I'm sure he was listening to our conversation like, please stop. The kind of resume that makes you wonder how he ever finds time to get on our little show here or do his gardening up in Maryland with his family. His debut novel, The Guilty Sleep. Gives me anxiety to even say that. It drops readers into the life of Afghanistan vet Dexter Grant. He's broke. He's battling PTSD. He's on the edge of losing his marriage. And he gets pulled into a dangerous plan to save his former interpreter. This starts as a simple heist, quickly unravels into a fight for his family's survival, guys. Jeremy's writing's been compared to C.J. Box's Unlikely Heroes and the lived-in noir of S.A. Cosby. And today he's here to talk to us about the new book and a life well led. Good morning, Jeremy. So glad to have you.
Hey, good morning. Thanks so much for having me on.
Let's just kind of jump in at the into the book without actually. Here's the difficult thing: is Lindsay so well alluded to. Love this book. This is a great summer read. This is a great read for guys who like books about guys in Guy Town. It's a great book for anybody who likes a really good time while they're reading the book.
Having a good time.
But the issue here is there's a lot of twists and turns, a lot of double crosses, triple crosses, and even towards the end, crosses you never saw coming. So we have to talk about the book in a way that doesn't give away the whole enchilada. But I want you to talk briefly about the idea of how you kind of balance talking about a lot of the darkness that is at the heart of this book, while at the same time giving the readers an absolutely rip-roaring good time. I feel like it's a good place to start. Take it away.
Yeah, absolutely. And first, I'll give a disclaimer. Absolutely no AI was used at any point
Thank you.
any of the creation of this book, whether the writing, the cover design, anything else. Completely AI-free. And that was a fascinating conversation to hear you all have. So the genesis for this book came about basically at the end of the Afghan war in August of 2021, as the U.S. was pulling out of Afghanistan. I, as someone who served in Afghanistan in the early days of the war, saw us pulling out, saw the country immediately, sort of falling into the hands of the Taliban. And as you can imagine, I had a lot of feelings about that. And a number of veterans that I know and I'm friends with or associate with had a lot of feelings. And we had a lot of sort of heartfelt conversations about the war. And as you've read the book, you've seen that there's kind of a scene in the book where a bunch of veterans are together talking about the war and kind of what was it all for. Everything that was said in the chapter of that book, for example, were taken from conversations that I had. So I'm having these thoughts and feelings in the August of 2021 time frame, and I'm someone who had been writing essentially ever since I got back from Afghanistan in late 2002, struggling with PTSD, trying to find anything that could work to kind of snap me out or claw me out of where I was, and what was helping after yet another sleepless night, up reading, thinking, oh, maybe I'll try to write something. And I found that I could take the things that I was thinking and feeling about and give them to another character and kind of step back and look at them from sort of a safe distance. And the more I did that, the more I found it helped my PTSD. So I've been writing ever since. So that takes us to August of 2021. And I had been working on the idea for a crime novel. And I thought, you know what, I want to tell a story of an Afghanistan vet. And I want to tell a story that's about camaraderie and about the cost of fighting wars on those who fight them. For me, that was, PTSD. For our character, it's PTSD. And I also really want to make an entertaining read that people will come back to and that will be surprised by, and put as much of my own experience into the story as I can so it will feel real and lived in. And that's how the book came about.
Really quickly, Lindsay, just really quickly, for those of you who are just joining us, Jeremy Baker's book is called The Guilty Sleep. It is a terrific read. It's a great read for just a good old-fashioned rip-roaring good time. It is a great examination of the pressure that many veterans are under in the aftermath of their service. So worth your time. I just wanted to make sure I got that in there. Lindsay, go ahead. You had a question.
Yeah, well, I just, Jeremy, this is so so important what you just said leading up to how the book even came to be. And so I just launched a show here on our platform a couple weeks ago called We Should Write, about the healing power of writing. You'd be a great guest to come back and talk about that, actually. But I find it so interesting what you said about being able, I mean, in ways you're not only just by writing yourself to healing, it sounds like, right when you came out of service and perhaps even when you were in, but then in addition, being able to work some stuff out through your characters here. And, I say all the time, I had my co-writer, I'm a songwriter, Jeremy, and my co-writer said to me, I said, do you not go to therapy? He said, no, I write songs. And I realized in that moment, kind of that same thing. He works his stuff up. If my character did it, then I don't have to admit I did it, but I get to kind of play it out. So anyway, I'm curious to you, before we dive into more in the book here, something maybe, because we have a lot of veterans that listen, obviously a lot of truck drivers as well, but how you could encourage people perhaps that writing is a really good place to work our stuff out. And maybe what is one thing you found out about yourself, Jeremy, through just writing and getting it out from our core and onto the page?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely great. I mean, there's, kind of an old writer's joke that goes like, I don't go to therapy. I write characters who then also refuse to go to therapy, right?
And Dex is, by the way, candidate number one, but go ahead, keep on going.
Yeah, no. So for me, I found writing stories extremely therapeutic. And like I said, mostly because I was able to write about traumatic things happening to other people and kind of see how they would react, or in some cases choose how they would react to that trauma, and then kind of go, okay, yeah, that's a thing that can work for that person. They're practicing mindful breathing, or they're going for a long run or something. Maybe I'll try that. There's some of that sort of very practical sort of work that goes into the writing for me, but really more deeply for me, what helped was just getting the thoughts and feelings and emotion out on the page. It was like wringing out a wet washcloth. And the more I did it, the more it honestly felt like I was taking the things that were in me or that I was dealing with and actually pushing them out of me by writing about them.
Wow.
And from talking with other veterans who write, or other people who've been through trauma who write about it, obviously I'm not a psychotherapist or a psychologist. I'm not a professional in that way. But anecdotally, I've heard over and over again how valuable that can be. Even just the act of writing about how you're feeling, right? It doesn't have to be fiction. It doesn't have to be a novel or a short story, but a number of vets I know journal and write about their memories and their thoughts and their feelings. And sometimes that can be painful, right? It's like addressing a wound, a physical wound, but the act of writing it, for me, it definitely was something that felt like therapy.
Wow.
One of the reasons, Lindsay, that sometimes people don't get wounds treated is that it hurts to treat them, and that there's an intense pain that comes with the treatment of a wound, and that people will often be more willing to live with low-grade pain than actually engaging with high-grade pain to then move to a place of healing. And in some ways, it sounds like that's what you're kind of cooking up here. I did want to share from the book to give people a sense of what a good time it is as well, too. This is a terrific description. Happens somewhere in the middle. Don't worry, guys. I'm not giving away anything. The port.
Spoiler alert,
Yeah.
Everybody dies. No,
That's absolutely not true.
That's not true.
The port director had a Hollywood name, Jim Phoenix. He had a Hollywood look, sleek and deeply tanned with a full head of thick hair swept back from a high, skinny forehead, a classic cop mustache, bespoke frameless glasses, and an Omega Seammaster bullhead on his wrist. His navy blue uniform fit him like a tailored suit, and his black leather gun belt was polished to a reflective sheen. His look was like his name. If you were casting a corrupt Fed, you'd laugh the guy out of the audition for being too on the nose. And what you've done here, to kind of let our listeners know, is you've played with the tropes here of troubled veteran does bad thing for good reason, and then managed to turn it all upside down on its head. And the question I've been dying to get to here is, did you know what the destination of this book was, or did you discover it in the writing?
It's a great question, right? There's, a couple different schools of thought about how you go about writing a novel, and usually people do what works best for them. There's the school of thought that you can be a plotter, right? So you've got your plot all worked out. You might have a detailed outline, major story beats, and you just write to those. And then there are people who are called pantsers, right? Because they write by the seat of their pants. And they maybe have an idea in their head of where the story is going, and then along the way, they just write until they get there. Like Dean Koontz is a famous he knows where he's going, and he just writes a page at a time until he's done telling the story. I'm somewhere in between. I start and I have an idea for a character or maybe a scene that is central to the story I want to tell, and I know where I want it to go. And then I'll start outlining, and then I'll write what I've outlined, and then I'll outline a little bit more and write more of that. And then somewhere along the way, sometimes the characters start taking over their own story. There's a character in this book, with no spoilers here, named Melchizedek Turner, who was originally going to be just sort of a fourth level character, and he kind of jumped out of the page and said, no, I'm actually more integral to the story than you might think, and in fact, I deserve my own point of view in the book. And so things like that will happen, and certain plot beats will happen where I think I'm going to do one thing, and I go, actually, the story is demanding I go this way, which then sometimes that requires going back and changing other stuff and re-outlining. And so I call myself a plantser. I'm halfway between a plotter and a pantser. And frankly, it's no way to work. 0 out of 10, would not recommend. And it's way too hard on myself. But for me, it's somewhere in the middle, right? A lot of times it's certain characters or certain beats kind of take over the story and take it in a slightly different direction than I intended. For this book, I knew kind of where I wanted to end up. I knew a lot of the major beats that I wanted to get through, and I knew a lot of the major characters, but there was still some wandering in the middle there.
By the way, I just want to add before Lindsay gets to her question, I got some, I guess, great news for you. Turner's my favorite character in the entire book. My favorite
fantastic.
character. My favorite character, by the way. And like I said, one of the great things about this is that it starts off as kind of a traditional heist, Lindsay, and then it spirals into a John Huston movie, which, by the way, it's people doing things you completely don't expect and unexpected notes of grace all over the place. It really is a lot of fun. Go ahead, Lou. Yeah,
well, no, I just listening to, it's such of course, I'm already thinking about what does the movie look like, but, it's so interesting how you pull back the curtain just enough for fiction without giving too much away, but really figuring out that balance of how do I make this informative, and like you said, I want to get the facts right. I did not use AI, like all those things, but still make it fictional. And my husband works in TV and film, and he has people always be like, I'd be a great reality show, just follow me around. It's like, no, to actually end up on TV, there's got to be a formula. It's got, all these different things. So I'm curious to you, as your 20 plus years of national security plus your experience prior, what is the thing I'm going to say, what's one of the major things that the movies never get right about that world, but also I'm going to couple that with, since we were talking about AI, AI has not gone to war the way it has not seen the things you've seen. It can be told about it, but it's never seen that. So what is the thing that you think with both movies and AI that they will never get right from your lived experience?
Yeah. So I'll tackle the AI thing first. I'm kind of passionate about it. I think AI has some uses in practical society, and including in things like national security work. We have massive amounts of data and intelligence coming in, and having a really, really smart AI that can help parse that data and make sense of it for human review, right, is really valuable, I think, in my line of work. In the creative arts, I don't personally feel there's a space for it. I think the great thing you were saying at the beginning of the conversation was, if you're using it for something that you're naturally talented at, it's going to lead to atrophy of that talent. And from what I've seen of AI writing and AI art, a lot of it just feels soulless. That's really hard to quantify because it's a feeling that you have when you see it or read it. But I think that's why art made by humans, I think, will always, if you pay attention, feel and resonate more than art made by an algorithm or a machine, because humans' lived experience comes through and shines through in the word choices you use, and even the unconscious sentence structure you might follow. Like, everyone who writes has their own writing style, even if it's a pastiche or a tribute of other writing styles. There's your own voice that's in it. So for me, a lot of this book actually, as I said, came from my own lived experience, from things like, everyone's flavor of PTSD, if they suffer from PTSD, is different. It manifests differently. Dex's flavor of PTSD in the book is what I experienced. The way it manifests for him with sleepless nights and bad dreams and unexplainable rage that comes and goes really quickly. Like, that was my experience. Other things like there's a series of flashbacks in the book that tells sort of an overarching story of something really bad that happened to Dex when he was in Afghanistan. Something very similar happened to me. Those flashbacks are based on some of my own experiences there of a similar type of incident that wasn't as bad, but could have gone that bad. And so there's Dex's family dynamic, his wife and his daughter, very much my wife and daughter in those characters. So yeah, there's a ton of me in this. In terms of what movies and TV shows get wrong that probably drive veterans crazy a little bit, or national security folks or law enforcement folks crazy a little bit, things like uniform and rank. A lot of times you'll watch somebody in uniform in a movie or a TV, and you're like, that guy's haircut is way out of regs, right? Like little stuff like that, or his army ribbons, the ribbons that tell the story of his accomplishments, they're all on upside down.
Well, that's big stuff. You say little, but that's big stuff.
The length of a tie.
Yeah, the length of a tie,
Yeah.
right? Like, for the love of God, if you're making a movie about military people, like, hire a good consultant and listen to them, and hire someone who's been in the service more recently than I have, right? Who will tell you about the current standards. Other things, I think about TV shows where they're going after the bad guy, and there's always like one sort of nerdy intel analyst who's at the computer in real time going, okay, our target is, Jack Smith, and he lives at this residence, and 20 years ago he went to this university. And they do that to sort of consolidate what the intelligence process looks like. But in reality, there's not one nerdy guy reading off in real time, chapter and verse on your target. There's a team of 25 people who've been working for 6 months or more to try to put a pattern of life together on an organized crime boss. And there's, PowerPoint presentations with janky formats. It's not all fancy on the screen. So I always kind of laugh when they do it on purpose, because they don't have, 6 months of TV to tell that story, and it would be really boring otherwise. But that's a little thing I always look for.
By the way, I always say the unattractive, nerdy person sitting at the center of it all is only unattractive and nerdy compared to the people who are standing around them, because it's Hollywood. In any other setting, they'd be the most handsome person in the room. Jeremy D.
Right.
Baker has joined us this morning. Go to jeremydbaker.com. You can find him on The Sky of Blue. By the way, Snake Pontchartrain, who's actually going to make a friend request for you, that's me. So take care of that. And you can find him on JD Baker 11058 on the X that used to be Twitter. It's great having you on. Best of luck with your book. And, maybe, I'm sure Lindsay will be reaching out to you to have a more in-depth conversation about the therapeutic powers of writing.
I would love that if you will do that, Jeremy. That'd be great.
Yeah, it'd be my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me on.
You got it, man.
Thank you, Jeremy.
We
Good dude. Buy this book. Read this book.